What's good, Shay Duke Jackson channel? It's your boy, back at it again, here with another collaborative interview, and I want everybody to come in, hit the bell, subscribe. And today I got a very talented brother. He's in another community we're both a part of in the Pan African space here on Black YouTube. I'll let him introduce himself, brother. Thank you for coming on. Go ahead and tell them who you are.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Brandon, aka Pan-Africanism Strikes Back. I'm a person who's on YouTube. Jiu-Jitsu black belt. That's one of my best accolades, and I also run a few projects over on the continent of Africa. But I'm a Black American person, and that's me.
All right. Okay. So the good thing about me and you, we both from California, right?
Right.
So did you go to Poly?
No, I went to Cabrillo on the west side.
Okay. So we both from California, and both of us, we come from the obviously the African American environment. And I was watching one of your streams, I think it was yesterday, and you were talking about, how you were mistreated by your mom when you were younger, and you were telling the truth about that. Even if you want to talk about that now, it's fine. But you were covering about how you evolved as a man, and basically you're telling your story, right?
Right.
When you were telling that story, and you're talking about how important your grandfather was, and you're telling the truth that your mom had picked had moved in a guy into your house, and you had to leave. When you were talking about that, a sister came into the chat, and she was like, "Brandon, why you always talking about your family? You should make content about building a community." And what that told me was, because you're a black man and you're telling the truth about what you've been through, she don't want you to tell the truth about your experience, but rather shut up and just keep living.
Right.
Why is that always the case with black men?
Well, one thing is, it's not really even about black men. It's about black women.
Okay.
What that ignorant person failed to realize when she said, "I'm always talking about my family," is that the family is the foundation of the community, right? Mm-hmm. So unless black men and women really acknowledge the role that their families played in who they are today and them becoming who they are, then how can you ever really build the community if that's the foundation of the community? If all we do is sit up and try to have this like secretive, keep our family life secret, when we do build the community, what will the community be built upon? A bunch of lies, a bunch of cover-ups, just like you see in many African American families these days, where all types of stuff is allowed and permitted, and it just goes on for decades, damaging everybody because nobody wants to speak up against it. So, and a lot of people who basically who cover that stuff up, I mean, you have to be honest and say it is the women. You know what I'm saying? If you got the creepy uncle in the family touching all the kids, Big Mama knows about that, but she ain't gonna tell nobody, "Hey, watch your kids around the creepy uncle," or, "Hey, I need to call the cops on this guy," or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So women, they love to save face. A real man can speak up and tell the truth and be honest, but women, it just seems like no matter what group of women you're dealing with, they are more inclined to keep things secret, keep things hush-hush, even when they interact with each other. Don't be telling that girl my business. A lot of things with women revolves around covering things up. I mean, you see girls put on 2 feet, 2 inches of makeup. What? You know what I'm saying? They got the butt pads and all sorts of things to kind of like deceive, right? To make a unrealistic image. And so, that's why you get women pushing back against black men who are really open, honest, and transparent. So they always say that all they want is honesty, but in reality, it's just not something that they emulate or model in their own lives and behavior. So it's just a hypocrisy. It's a type of hypocrisy.
One of the things that you're talking about, because I want to get into how important, your grandfather was. We'll get into that a little bit later. You mentioned that because of your grandfather, you had to move out of your mom's house because she had a boyfriend at 14. And because of your grandfather and his tutelage, you were able to become a lot different than some of your cousins and things like that. And one powerful thing you said that really hit home to me, you said a lot of black men are out here thinking that don't nobody love them. And so because don't nobody love them, they walking around with a gun, don't care if they hurt anybody. And I thought that was so profound because we have so many of our African American men who, looking for love from their mom, looking for love for a gang and things like that. And when I heard you say that, I know that's true because we the same people. I understand a lot of our men feel like that. But then when women were hearing that, and I'm not saying all of them do, it's almost like they have no sympathy, some of them, for black men for what they've been through.
Right. And the reality is a lot of women don't have sympathy for black men. The reality is society, men are still supposed to toe the line and meet this macho standard, right? Mm-hmm. While women and everybody else gets all this help, all these resources to help them deal with the evolution of our society. While men are like, nah, you still got to be macho, while life constantly throws darts at you. You know what I'm saying? You get hit, you getting full head-on collisions, and you supposed to just get up and brush it off. And so women are taught that men are supposed to be tough, right? Mm-hmm. Women are taught that women are supposed to be strong with all this support, right? With all this backup. But men are supposed to be strong and tough with the weight of the world on their shoulders, right? And my grandfather, he was a person who really took an interest in me. Like my mother, she didn't sit down and actually talk to me about, well, this is what you need to be doing. And she never asked me, how was your day? My mom never even asked me, how was your day today? When I went to live with my grandfather, he was the first person that was like, how you doing? How was your day? Good morning. He actually taught me that when you wake up and walk past somebody in the morning, you're supposed to say good morning to them, because he had been in the Navy and he was a real man. He worked the job, he retired, which is different from my mom, who was just a lifelong welfare recipient, and her mother before her. They didn't have any real tact or ability to interact with nobody on a real level because everything was based on, consumerism, government dependency, and pretty much looking at your children like they were just a source of, income, not like an actual parent.
Mm-hmm. You also talked about like even some of your friends and your family, ended up the other men that didn't have that guidance, from their, from a male figure. I know you said there's one guy you said that has like 8 kids by 8 different women and things like that. But you ended up, a functional member of society, doing things, trying to do things in Africa, getting things set up. How much of that male mentorship do you feel African American men are missing out on right now because of where we're at right now?
Okay, I'll give you an example. Mm-hmm. Okay, I've been married for 13 years, right?
Right.
I've been married for a long time in our community. Basically, that's a long time.
Yeah.
When I got with my wife, when she was just my girlfriend, I brought my wife into my house to meet my grandfather. And my grandfather got up off the couch because he used to sit on the couch and watch sports. He got up, he came, gave her a hug. Oh, she's so beautiful. She's so pretty. How you doing? My name is this. I mean, he was very, cordial. He was very, he had a good manners, right? Mannerism. Mm-hmm. And he made her feel welcome. Mm-hmm. And when we walked out of the house, she was like, man, I love your grandpa. He's so awesome, right? Mm-hmm. Now compare that to when I got my first girlfriend and I introduced her to my mom.
Oh my God.
I was to introduce her to my mom because my mom already knew me and the girl were kind of involved. Mm-hmm. So from the day we were involved, my mom was just degrading her. Oh, she's probably sleeping around with all the guys in the neighborhood, all this kind of stuff. So what is that making me as a man think about black women? Oh, right. These women ain't nothing. All they do is go open up the legs for any guy around the neighborhood. Well, that's what my mom said, and she's a woman, so she must know. Women dislike each other, right? Mm-hmm. So how can you expect a man that's raised primarily by a woman to truly have a real respect for women? The first person I ever heard talk trash on women, call women bitches and hoes. What? Sorry, I didn't mean to say bees and hoes, was my mom talking on the phone to her friends. I didn't hear a man doing that. I didn't hear that. I didn't even listen to rap music, right? So I didn't hear a man doing that. I heard her doing that. So in my life, what I found is I've had more success by totally rejecting the things that kind of like stuck with me from the time I spent being raised by my mother up until 14. The things that, you know, the side of my family that was dominated by women, the things that they taught me and told me, well, this is the way you do that. I found that the more I reject those things, the better off I did in life, right? Mm-hmm. And so I know that many of our men are suffering because they're caught in like this feminist limbo where they're a man, they have a penis, and they're expected to operate like a man, but they are so heavily influenced by female dysfunction that it makes them impossible to move forward in any real way when it comes to the opposite sex, when it comes to working a job, anything like that. How do you expect a man raised by a woman who ain't did nothing but receive welfare, Section 8 and food stamps his whole life? How do you expect him to go out and get on a job and take it seriously? No one ever taught him. But it's not the woman who was present's fault. It's his daddy's fault. Daddy could be dead, but it's daddy's fault. But mama ain't got no type of accountability for nothing that happened to him. And I realized, because I'm in a unique position, I realized that the present mother is way more damaging than the absent father, because once I got away from that present mother and that negative influence, my life was on an upward trajectory. Once I got in the presence of a man who really, he wasn't overbearing. He just was like, you know what you want to do. Like my grandfather never even forced me to get up and go to school. He was like, if you want to go to school and get an education, you gonna do that. I don't have to force you or tell you. And I'm the first person in my family to graduate from high school. I'm telling you, the first person. And it's a bunch of men in my family, a bunch of women in my family on my mom's side. None of them even got a high school diploma. I'm the first person. And that was with someone saying, I'm not going to pressure you. I'm not going to hit you and beat you if you decide you don't want to do something. If I didn't want to go to school, I just didn't go to school. But I knew, because the ball was in my court and I didn't have like this added stress, right, of some woman like nagging on me and, you know, bringing men into the house, strange men into the house and being ridiculous. I was able to then assess what I wanted in my life. And I could always go to somebody and say, hey, Grandpa, what do you think about this? With my mom, I didn't have that. My mom didn't give me access to her. Our women, they don't even give their own children access to them.
Let me kind of go back into, you know, now that you're a YouTuber, and when you talk about your past, and a lot of times, even though brothers get over it, you know, for black men, I always say, you know, a lot of times you got to talk about those things because it still affects you. You know, it could affect you still. Right. And you're just telling your truth, you know, getting it off your chest. And what I notice is, especially even in the, you know, the black church arenas and even in certain Pan-African spaces, I believe that the attitude towards black men is to, you know, black men, you should shut up, go out there and build. And give us money. We don't really want to hear what you got to say unless it's kissing our ass. You know, we don't want to. It's okay for us to criticize you, but we don't want you criticizing us or talking about us. And then if you tell the truth, you get the swarm of bees of sisters coming in. You know, not all of them, because the sisters that definitely understand what we go through. And shout out to the sisters out there who understand that a lot of black men are not saying things to bash them. They're just talking about their experience, right? Because we know on their end that, you know, men have done things to them. We wouldn't disagree with that because we know it happens. Right. But why do you think it's just, you know, for a lot of the black women in the community, at least the consensus, what it seems is, just shut up and build the black community and be quiet.
Right. And it's not even so much that they're saying shut up and build the black community and be quiet. What they're saying is shut up, build the community, then hand us the keys, right? And even if we run it into the ground, you gonna just accept it and shut up and keep and build it again, right? And we can even see that within our family structures. You know, the women raise the children. The children are all coming out messed up. But then those same people who are raising the children to be messed up are saying, well, I crashed the Honda, but give me the keys to the Ferrari. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
No, you can't even handle raising little kids. But now you want us to hand you the reins to our communities. And because of the society we live in, we're expected to just shut up and hand over the keys, whether they can handle the situation, whether they can handle the car, the figurative car or not. And that's just the line that you're going to toe. As long as you live in America as a black man, those are your options. Shut up and shut up some more and hand over that money and hand over those keys. That's it.
Let me ask you this, and I want to go back to if you can remember when you were a younger man or a teenager, when you were trying. And a lot of black men, like my father, my grandmother on my father's side, she just recently passed about 2 months ago. And now, I mean, as she got older, she was, I think probably much nicer to me than she was to him. But he loved her, even though, it was said that she was, really mean to him. She didn't really try to support a lot of things that he was doing. But he still loved her, like, even more, right? And a lot of black men have kind of had this rejection from their mom, because it's the only mom they have. They still love her because, even if the mom is not really there. How did that make you feel, when you were trying to build a relationship with your mother, you were trying to talk to your mother, and your mom was kind of rejecting you?
Well, the first thing was the rejection from my mom started when we were little, because we basically were put in the foster system. We went to go live with my grandmother because my mom basically put straight plain, she wanted to go party instead of raise her children. So she would leave us with different babysitters for days and days at a time, to the point where one of them had to call the social service because they're like, she's not coming back, to get her kids. So they took us away. And they told my mom, you have to do a 30-day class, parenting class. You got the kids back. Well, my mom didn't do that class for 9 years, right? So, as most parents do. Right. So after a long time, my mom ended up finally doing the class. And the place she went to, they offer parenting classes and all this type of stuff. So she went and did the class. And they were telling her, you can get custody of your kids back now. So, normal, it's all fun and, happy thoughts and, we're going to go back with mommy and all this type of stuff. But once we actually made the transition from my grandmother's house to my mom's house, it was pretty clear that the only reason my mom really wanted to get custody of us back was because she wanted the money. She wanted the government assistance that comes with, back in the 90s, you got good money for having children. Children were like a source of income. So really what she was trying to do was elevate her economic status. And that was the real motivation to get us back, and it shows when someone genuinely cares about you, it shows, versus if they're just looking at you as a cash cow. And with my mom, within the 5-year span, it showed, it was pretty glaring, and so it was really a situation where I felt like, this person, once it clicks in your mind, you start getting older, hitting puberty, you're like, this person doesn't care about me. This person has never cared about me. They've only saw me as a source of income. So you feel unloved. So most men, I was able to go find that, love. I had another support system, my father's side of my family, but most men don't have that. So they walk around every day just feeling like nobody cares about them. And then when you feel like nobody cares about you, that is like the vehicle to do all sorts of inhumane type of things. Like most of these dudes killing people out in these streets are walking around feeling like, don't nobody love me, so I don't love nobody. So give me the gun and I'll be the trigger man. That's what we're dealing with. Kids walking around feeling unloved. Maybe their dad is in jail or on drugs and stuff. And the mom, the one who's supposed to do the nurturing part, is basically like, she's falling down on her responsibility. But when she falls down on her responsibility, it's never her fault. Where was his dad at? Where was this and all that at? It's like, it don't work like that. There are mothers who love their sons to the point where their sons have success. Then there are
Right.
mothers who relinquish their responsibility, and then their children don't have success, but they don't want to take it. If I made it to the NFL, should be the first person to talk about, oh, that was all me. I helped them out. But since I didn't or whatever, it's like I ain't responsible for that. That's your daddy's fault. Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and we do want to say that obviously there's black women out there that care about their children, and I have a really great mother, so we're not trying to say that this is every case. This is his experience. So
my wife is one of them. My wife is one. My wife.
And you have grandmothers that your father. You had a grandmother that was involved in your life too, right?
Yeah, my dad's mom. Oh my gosh, she was like she was an integral part of my upbringing. I mean, even when my mom would be on her BS, my grandmother on my dad's side would always come. We moved when I got back with my mom. We moved to a city way out in California called San Bernardino. It's like the boonies, right?
Yeah.
My grandma was like 65 years old. She would get in her car and drive like an hour and a half each way to come visit me, bring me food, bring me money, bring me clothes, bring me shoes, because my mom would just like take her money and like blow it. Like the money she was getting for us, she would just go spend it, give it to men, go out and party, whatever. And, we spent a lot of time at home by ourselves. And my grandma was like, look, I'm old, I can't really raise kids. I'm older. She's like, but I will be there in every other way, So where our older women, the grandmothers, like in the 90s, pretty much we know the grandmas was pretty much raising all the kids in the 90s, right? The mamas wasn't raising them. But those same mothers now, 20 years later, swear that they were like the best mothers ever. But we know that most of these kids live with their grandma. You know what I'm saying? That's the reality.
Mm-hmm. Let me also talk about something that's a little bit unique. Because one thing I understand is, in my success, the little bit that I've had, I'll say in the last 5 years, my grandfather, my father was there the majority of my life, but my grandfather wasn't the smartest man in the world, but he was a church deacon for over 60 years. And the one thing that I noticed about him, I always saw him getting along well with other men. And they would have a little bit of a network, and they would go do things together. They would go to different churches together, things like that. And I was there to see that, and I saw how these men were able to build communities with one another. To whether it's getting little side hustles or side jobs, and or go to this brother to get this here. And when I look at a lot of African American men of today, especially around maybe the 40s, 30s, 20s, that range, 20s to 40s, you see a lot of brothers that are very, very talented, and you see a lot of brothers that have a lot of skill sets. But one of the things that we have a problem doing is working with other black men to depend on each other's talents. And do you think that because the problem with some mothers, is that it damages these young men from being able to see other black men as being valuable?
Yeah, well, look at this. If you watch black men dog your mama out, right? She picked the bad ones, but you don't know that the guy is bad for her. You're a kid, you know what I'm saying? All you know is this dude hurt your mom's feelings, made her cry. He was here, then he was gone. How's that going to affect the way you look at black men? You're going to look at them like they ain't nothing, right? So when you need help, black men never helped your mother, right? And essentially, they never helped you because you depend on her. When you look at them, are you looking for them as a source of like assistance? Or are you just looking at them like these dudes are up to no good? All they want to do is figure out a way to manipulate you and take advantage of you like they did your mother, right? And your mom, when the dude's the best thing since sliced bread when she first meet him, by the time they're done with their relationship, he's the worst thing ever. Man, teach their sons to hate other black men, just like they teach their sons not to trust black women, right? These lessons are all coming from the mother. The man provides, but the women teach the children. So we're basically getting a lesson in dual self-hate. Hate the men who look like you and hate the women that you're supposed to depend on to, procreate with and raise the babies. Why do you think you see so many black men run off to white women and women of other races and stuff? Because our mothers tarnish our own women so bad in our eyes. It's like, I would be a fool to go mess around with one of those, but the white girl, we never had much exposure to them, not romantically anyway. So it's a lot of layers to that. But ultimately, we are just taught to treat each other with hostility from jump. And My grandfather was like you said. My grandfather, we walked down the street to go to the coffee shop or something. Hey, what's up, Milton? What up? Hey, what up, Mr. Johnson? Those were relationships. Man, I used to work with this guy over down for the city. We worked together 30 years and everyone knew each other. And it was all these men who kind of had a good relationship. If I need something, I could go to this guy, or, this guy does like windows and screen repair. And I knew him for this many years. Men forge relationships. Those old school brothers. The new school brothers, we are starting to get back to that, right? We're in the information age. But in like the 90s, early 2000s, man, we looked at a black man, unless he was from the same gang as us, all he was the competition. That was the enemy. That was just the enemy. So you see what the path leads to. And this is the part of our history and our upbringing that nobody wants to mention, because you don't want to offend the women. We walk around on eggshells because we don't want to offend the women who really pretty much are offending us and offending themselves and damaging our society.
Yeah, and again, we're so when somebody was like, well, not all. We obviously we know that it's not all. We're talking about.
We never even have to say that. The good women know who we talking about, because they have the same criticisms of women. Shazar Ali, she used to say that all the time about what black women be doing. Some women gonna take it and say, that's true, be accountable, and others are not. Like if you tell me, hey, a lot of fathers were absentee because they was doing drugs or selling drugs and no one forced them to, you absolutely right. Oh yeah, a lot of men drop the ball. Ultimately, you can say a lot of it's caused by men dropping the ball, but I'm not gonna give men a avenue to escape accountability, and I for sure ain't gonna give women an avenue to escape accountability. I'm talking about my experience, and the person who was the most detrimental part of my experience was my mother.
Right. Well, and I'm glad you were able to come over to the channel, brother. And a lot of times, because you're in the Pan-African community, and there's not a lot of men talking about a lot of men's issues, because you talk more about what's going on in the continent, a lot of ADOS type of stuff and debates and interactions. But I noticed that there's not a lot of safe platforms where black men talk about their own experiences. And so I do salute you for just, even in that live stream, for talking about how a lot of black men feel like some people don't love them, and have to go through a lot of pain, because people don't know that black men also have feelings. We hurt, of course. And so I thank you for bringing light to that. Can you go ahead and tell people about Pan-Africanism Strikes Back, and if they want to subscribe to your channel, what kind of content will they be looking for on your channel, brother?
Oh yeah, Pan-Africanism Strikes Back. There you go. Pan-Africanism Strikes Back. That's the name of my channel. On my channel, we talk about Pan-African themes. We talk about moving back to Africa. We talk about African values, restoring the African mindset, which is very crucial in my opinion, and the opinion of many others, is crucial to the rebuilding of our community, right? A lot of us, we want to go back to Africa because we recognize the things that were a part of our African mindset in communities a long time ago that have been stripped away from our communities now, which are really the underlying causes of all these problems. So ultimately, the men and women, we blame them directly, the ones who are related to us, but these are all caused by underlying issues that have existed in our communities for centuries, basically, ever since we were enslaved or whatnot. But in this space, in my space that I create, it's like not only telling you, hey, let's get back to Africa, reconnect to the continent, but it's actually giving you tangible ways to do that, providing real information. I run a program where I actually, for my group that's within my program, we've actually purchased 50 acres in Africa, and we're going to build on that and stuff like that. So, all that I do credit to my grandfather, to my grandmother, because they basically put me in a space to where I could get that foundation that I needed to take my rightful place as a leader in our community. So and a lot of us don't have that foundation. That's why you see that leadership is so lacking in our community.
All right. And so, definitely check the brother out. He has some really interesting content. Go to the first comment pinned to the top, subscribe to Pan-Africanism Strikes Back. And guys, I do thank you for checking this out. And as you know, the buffoonery remains at an all-time high. I'm out.
Thank you.